There's a whole bunch of little nicks and knacks out there, besides the fact that we're in one hell of an economic boom, which, as we talked about with Speaker Gingrich, if President Trump gives that Detroit speech once a week and his people give it, he's going to be in pretty good shape. But let's talk about some of these nicks and knacks. We have Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump and Fox News contributor. We have Liz Peek, also Fox News contributor. Ladies, thank you very, very, very much. Would you rather talk about Jay Powell's martyrdom or the Trump economic boom?
Well,
I know
they're not
this,
related.
I know this is a really hard question.
They're actually not related, Larry, so you'd have to do them on parallel tracks. Look, the Trump economic boom is easy for all of us to see. I know the watchword, the Sesame Street word of the month for the Democrats is affordability. That's not new. People talk about inflation, rising prices. They've been telling pollsters about this for decades. I think what is different is that if the focus continues on just gas and groceries, we're missing a tremendous opportunity for the focus to be on housing and health care. These are two nagging parts of the individual or household budget that is more difficult to navigate than gas prices or grocery prices because they're bigger ticket items. The average age for a first-time home buyer in our nation now, sadly, is 40. The late, great Charlie Kirk made the point, Benny Johnson's making it now for him at AFPI and elsewhere, that young people, particularly young men, have as a life goal to get married, to start a family, and to own a home. Property is purpose. And so that is part of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness that was meant to be property. We need to make it, I think, more affordable for folks to get that first home. And Republicans have to get the marbles out of their mouth when it comes to health care. Why are you afraid of this issue? Obama gave us Obamacare, government-run health care. Show everybody what's wrong with that. Talk about free market healthcare that's more affordable, more accessible, higher quality, more choices, less government intervention. Nobody wants Big Brother and Uncle Sam in the doctor's office between doctor and patient. So I think there are things to do on that. As for Jay Powell, I think that he ruined the independence of the Fed when he went and cut 50 basis points in September 2024 because the Democrats had nominated not one but two that year, terrible candidates.
And every cockamamie woke, you know, DEI, climate change, blah, blah, blah. No, listen, Newt Gingrich said that my Puro plan might have some legs. We'll see how that plays out. But Liz, is other stuff, Wall Street Journal, front page, Wall Street thinks Trump is deserting him. They don't like some of his ideas. A 10% cap on credit cards, for example, keeping private investors out of the housing business, for example. How much of that is Wall Street? I don't know if Wall Street was ever for Trump. He's given them a fabulous stock market. I think that's what really matters. But what do you make of that?
Well, and I think they're probably completely fritzed that he spent some time on the phone with Elizabeth Warren not too long ago, right? I mean, they're freaked out about that. Look, they're doing just fine. Wall Street is doing just fine. But to Kellyanne's point, it seems like we're sort of batting at flies here, trying to address the affordability issue. A cap on interest rates on credit cards for 1 year, what does that accomplish? That just seems like something you can spin out there to make certain people happy. It really isn't going to accomplish much. We should have a program, totally right, about home ownership. It isn't corporate ownership of homes that is driving the problem with affordability. Affordability, by the way, is getting better. You haven't really read that anywhere, but there's an index that shows the combination of mortgages and price, and actually it's getting better for people. But there are things we could do in terms of regulation, which, by the way, is one of President Trump's great messages to America. Deregulate, get all these permit problems out of the way, and we can build a lot of homes. I mean, I did a piece a few months ago comparing building in San Francisco to Texas, and for the same unit, it was 4 times as expensive, not because cement is more expensive, but because the regulatory process made it impossible in San Francisco to build. So when the Democrats talk affordability, the highest cost of living places in America are all run by Democrats, and a lot of it comes back to this regulatory issue. So I think President Trump has a lot he can talk about without going on these sort of wacko things.
That thing, affordability platform in Davos, I don't know, we'll wait and see what it is. The Detroit speech was so good. Did you know, numbers just came out from the CPI and the jobs report. Average real weekly earnings, all right, production workers, blue-collar workers, okay, plus 1.1% for the entire year. excluding COVID, that is the best performance since 2018, the last time he was president.
Last time he was there pre-COVID.
That's affordability.
Yeah, that's
He's
affordability.
booming the economy, and I mean, I think too much hokiness, we don't need it. Let's stay on the message.
So let's stay on brass tacks.
Boom.
I think, Larry, if 2025 was the year for doing hard things, 2026 must be the year for communicating all the hard things that have been done and how they're going to benefit you. So
Yeah,
the $18 trillion in direct foreign investment, tell people, finish the sentence, this is how that helps you and your bottom line. But most importantly, the One Big Beautiful Bill includes so many benefits that the public is not aware of. We've done polling on this, including for AFPI, and they find out, oh, depreciation, 100% expensing for factories or facilities new or expanded. They hear the child tax credit was doubled. Everybody already knows no tax on tips, overtime, Social Security. If we're still saying that, we're losing an opportunity to tell everybody else what else is in there. Why does it matter if corporations have a 21% tax rate? It matters because it's not 35% that it was when we got there in 2017, went down to 21%, lower than the OECD average. Why does that matter? It matters because then the corporations will take that money and they'll invest in their personnel, in inventory, in AI and technology, building data centers. They'll invest in research and development. And this is important because that's how the economy gets stimulated, that's how prices go down, that's how jobs get created. They've got a great story to tell. And I'm glad he's going to Davos to tell the whole world, the World, quote, Economic Forum.
That story.
Yes.
That's the story we wanted to tell. Now, the other thing that annoyed me, another front page story in the Wall Street Journal. These are news stories, quote unquote. Trump is unhappy with Pam Bondi. Trump is yelling at all his U.S. prosecutors around the country. Maybe Jeanine Pirro's part of that. I have no idea. Where's this stuff coming from? Where is it? This, nicking and knacking of day-to-day politics, political reporters having to file stories. This is another one. Let's not get sidetracked. All right? If he wants to go after his old enemies, I say let him do it. You know what? I say let him do it the way they treated him years ago. That's really what this is about.
Larry, I 100% agree.
Jack Smith, a whole lot of them, just go after them.
Every time I get to the point of thinking, oh, no, not another battle with this guy that did you wrong 2 years, then I think, what the heck?
Right.
I mean, they put him through the mill, right? And why? Because actually he did create a terrifically strong economy. And by the way, he's doing the same thing again. Your talk about real income, that is the message.
Yeah.
That is the message. People are better off. And honestly, to Kellyanne's point, the messaging on the Big Beautiful Bill, I've never seen a worse rollout and description of a bill to the American public. The Democrats grabbed it and they debunked it and sort of dismissed it entirely, and there was no pushback whatsoever.
Well, they're starting to do better.
Larry, I want to have a word about Pam Bondi.
I was just going to say,
she's my friend. She's a great attorney general. Sure,
stuff?
but there are people who want her job, who I guess are talking to reporters. Let's be honest about this. You and I lived through this in the first term. The president understands how this works. He understands how hard these jobs are and what people are being asked to do. He doesn't want a bunch of obsequious yes men and yes women. Obsequiousness bores him. That's one of the dumbest things said about him, is that he only wants people who agree with him. He used to say, Larry, tell Kellyanne when she's wrong.
Argue.
Kellyanne, tell Jared why that's not true, or that's not the way to go. And he likes that because it gives him what he needs, which is, as the Bible says, wisdom in a multitude of counselors. But as for Pam, she's doing a phenomenal job. I'm sure there are people on social media nipping at her heels. They don't have a clue what these jobs are about. And by the way, they didn't get any of these jobs. I'm sure they'd like them.
By the way, if you actually
she's doing a great job. And if you read
the story, there was not one single piece of evidence.
And more importantly, I just want to say this. I want to take one more minute, if I can. Steve Forbes, give me your minute today. I'll give you 10 back another time. I want to take one more minute on Pam. There are all on the record comments complimenting her from the Chief of Staff, Susie Walsh, from Vice President J.D. Vance. They said Marco Rubio said great things also. They just didn't print them. They had too many great comments on the record about Pam Bondi to print.
It's a hit piece.
And look, jealousy makes people jealous, makes zealous. Trust me, people are jealous.
She was on this show for an interview, great interview. The day the Venezuelan government went down, she was terrific. She's experienced, great prosecutor, smart woman. And by the way, he has great affection for her. We know that.
We all serve with the pleasure of the president, but I think that the news should be the news and not a bunch of gossip.
Really?
I think take-home pay and kitchen home tables, man, that's the key. Kellyanne Conway, Liz Peek, and Pam Bondi.